Hello, welcome back to the podcast where today I'm delighted to be joined by Karen Drucker, all the way from California. I was going to say sunny California. Is it sunny, Karen?
Today it's sunny. It's been raining. We never get rain. We've been in this incredible drought, and we just all of a sudden got England weather. We just it's raining and raining and raining. So
Uh,
we're pretty happy about that. But today is sunny and beautiful.
well, we didn't get your weather, unfortunately. It's raining here as well. So there we go. Um, I always start off these things by asking people about their upbringing. And normally what happens is that people's upbringings are kind of usually quite mundane and then they go on to do stuff less mundane, if you like. But your upbringing, from what I know of it, is far from mundane. Um, you are a lady of the canyon, essentially, by the sound of it.
I am a lady of the canyon. Yes.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us a
Well,
little bit about that?
okay. Well, first of all, how did you find me? Tell me how you
I'll
got
tell you
introduced.
exactly how I found you because it's quite unusual and it leads to perhaps the reason I wanted to talk to you so much. I was doing a mindfulness teacher training course, and the lady who did it was a woman called Paula Pluck, and she played one of your songs, "I'm So Grateful,"
Oh, great.
and it really struck me. But the thing that strikes me in a kind of wider context is that it's not the average way you first hear someone. You know, it wasn't on the radio, or these days would be your YouTube or Spotify or anything like that. It was very in something that was very connected with a different world, and that's, like I say, that's something I'd like to spend quite a lot of time exploring with you, the different role
Yes.
that music can play to the usual one that I'm used to, which is your more general music business type
Right.
stuff. But talking of the music business, yeah, you kind of grew up surrounded by it, by the sound of it.
Well, okay, so I'll kind of give you the whole background here. So, grew up in Hollywood, California, and my joke is always yes, people are actually born there because people think you just come to Hollywood to be a star, but I was born in Hollywood. My bedroom as a little kid, I would look out and I'd see the Hollywood sign right there, the
Uh,
famous Hollywood sign. And I grew up in Hollywood, and but the thing that was a little different is I was a competitive swimmer. So I was put in competitive swimming at like 6 years old, and that's all I did. I was training for the Olympics. I swam 4 hours a day. That's all I knew. But I had this burning desire to do music, and yet too embarrassed to let anybody even know that I did that. I didn't come from a musical family. I wasn't ever put in piano lessons as a kid. I mean, nothing. All I did was swim. But every time everybody would leave the house, this is my little confession, I would take out my electric toothbrush and I would stand in front of the mirror, lip syncing to, Barbara Streisand or Bette Midler or Bonnie Raitt or whatever. And I have this curly hair, but my dream was to have long blonde straight hair. And so I used to put on, my mom had like a fall, one of those long wigs, and I'd put this on and I'd pretend I'm like, moving my hair around and I'm singing my songs. But then if anybody ever came home, I immediately, threw all that stuff in my secret hiding place.
yeah,
But here's the deal. This is how I think, and I'll talk about this, that I truly believe in life that there are events that happen to us that we have no control over, that it's like maybe it's destiny, maybe it's you create it on some level. But when I was about 15 years old, 15 or 16, I'm this geeky kid. I'm straightening my hair. I have acne and braces, and I'm just a geek. And but I was the babysitter for all the kids on my street in Laurel Canyon. And Laurel Canyon, growing up, if I don't know if anyone knows much about Laurel Canyon, but it was this kind of hippie place. It's kind of, it's kind of rustic and everything, but there were a lot of musicians that lived in that area. And about that time, the musician Carole King moved in a couple doors down, and she had two older kids, but then a little girl named Molly, and then a few years later she had another child named Levi. But I just, in my little 16-year-old geekiness, just when I heard that there was a new person who moved in, I mean, I certainly knew who she was, but I just knocked on the door. Hi there, I babysit all the kids. Can I babysit your kids? And so she had a live in nanny, but I became the alternate. And that changed my life. What happened was I went on the road with her when she would tour. I was there taking care of the kids. I When she was remodeling her house, I mean, this is the pivotal point in my life. When she was remodeling her house, she needed to store her piano. She had this like upright piano. She needed to store it someplace. And I guess she was in cahoots with my parents because I came home one day and in my bedroom is a piano. And because of that, I now had this new purpose in my life. And I taught myself how to play piano. And I couldn't sing my way out of a paper bag. I was terrible. But she said, the famous words she said to me were, if you write your own songs, it doesn't matter how you sound. She said, look at me, look at Bob Dylan, you
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
like write your own. So I started to write these teenage angst, my life is so terrible, I have acne braces, songs. And that started my life. And I have been doing music ever since then.
It's the first sort of thought that occurs to me, and I'm sure would occur to many people listening. Really, is this kind of different upbringing you had in Laurel Canyon, and you got what the Mamas and the Papas, you got Joni Mitchell, all these kind of people. I'm
Well, see, in
guessing there,
Mamas and
but
Papas, that's another story I could tell you about. Papa Denny lived two doors down. And can I just interject this other little
oh,
story?
please do go ahead. Yeah,
So here's the Mamas and the Papas. Papa Denny lived two doors down, this neat house, and I think this was when I was probably about 13 that I wanted to buy a bicycle. I mean, I wanted a bicycle, and my parents, who were self-employed, who were trying to teach their kids, all these values, my dad said, "Well, if you want to get a bicycle, you have to figure out how to get the money for it." And so that's when I became the babysitter. But in this case, I walked up and down my street. This just shows what a little enterprising little being I was back then. I just walked up and down my street. I knocked on every door and just said, I want to buy a bike. Is there something I can do for you this summer? And Denny had these two obnoxious, huge English sheepdogs. And I knocked on the door and said, can I walk your dogs can I walk your dogs in exchange for, I need to raise $100, to buy this bicycle. And he said, yeah, if you want to walk these dogs every day, that would be great. So that was my first job. So I went down there, I walked the dogs, and which is, like you can barely keep them on the leash, but I did my first day of my work for him. And so I deliver the dogs back, and he's standing there and he goes, great, thanks so much. And he gives me $100. And I go, oh no, I meant I would do this for the summer, that I'm raising $100. And he goes, no, it's okay. Here's $100. I mean, he's at the height of his rock starness. I mean, he's wealthy. He gives me $100. And I'm like, I had never even seen $100 bill. So I'm bursting at this. I'm like freaking out about this. And, I'm so excited that I got $100 and that was it. And I remember, I mean, how you just have these little memories, you have these little pictures. I remember walking down the street, looking at my $100, and I looked up. Oh God, I can almost cry. And he's on his balcony looking down at me with the sweetest, expression of just like almost like a fatherly look, like he had made this difference in this little girl's life. And it was so sweet. I mean, I can still see him looking at me. And I come home and I tell my parents, oh my God, I got this. And wouldn't you know, my dad said, that's great. And the agreement was you were going to walk those dogs. And so I had to go back and walk those damn dogs all summer long. But it was great. I mean, he taught me the lesson. It's like, work for that money. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, I don't know if that's a great lesson to learn. I probably, am scarred by that, thinking I always have to work so hard to get any money. But, I did walk those dogs, but it was just, anyway, that's my little Papa Denny story.
were your parents hippies then? Is that how come you were there?
Say that again.
Were your parents hippies? Was that how
Oh
come you
God,
were?
no, not at all. No, they were not. They were not. They were not hippies at all. They were very straight and narrow and worked hard. They were both entrepreneurs. They both had their own businesses. So I grew up, learning about that. Learning about the um, the freedom and the responsibility of owning your own business and what that means. So I would have to say that being a musician for all these years that I've been doing this, um, I would say the combination of my parents' work ethic and being a swimmer has allowed me to make a living at this wacky business for as many years as I have because I never had a paycheck. I never had someone just say, oh, at the end of the week, we're going to just give you this paycheck. Any money I made, I created. Whether that meant, going door to door on my street, going, what can I do to make money from you, this summer? Or, when I was a struggling singer songwriter in San Francisco, literally going to restaurants that I would see that they had a piano in the corner, but nobody was playing it. So I would come in and go, hey, I'll, try me out for a night for free. Just do an exchange of give me dinner and try me out. And, can I have a job here? And that's how I started, just creating jobs. And when I started to want to play clubs, and these club owners were saying, well, you don't have a name, nobody knows who you are. And I was like, well, how do I get a name? And so they were like, well, that's your problem, figure it out. And so that's when I developed things like calling musicians, other musicians that did have a name, that had a following, and they were playing clubs. And these were musicians that I knew and that they were similar to what I did. And I just called them up and said, can I be a free opening act for you? You don't even have to pay me. I'll be your opening act. Let me just get on stage. So I did that for, a while until I started to get my own following and started to play clubs on my own. So anyway, going back to what you were saying, Ladies of the Canyon. Yes, that is that. I am a lady of the canyon with Joni Mitchell and all these people.
I can't help but project some kind of ideas about how that must have been, quite frankly. And idyllic is the word that comes to mind, really. Is that fair?
Well, but when you're growing up in it, you don't know that it's even special.
So,
I mean, really, you don't even get that it's different. I mean, growing up in Hollywood, you're driving down the street and oh, here's Steven Spielberg in the next car next to you, or here's, I mean, there's just stars all around growing up in Hollywood. You just, I remember when I was driving off to college, I went to some store right before I did my drive to this new school, and here's John Denver at the checkout counter at the same time as me. And I remember I turned to him and said, I don't mean to disturb you, but I just got to tell you, I'm leaving for college right now. And I'm this young kid going off on my own. And your songs have really helped me have inspiration. And I remember he put his hand on my shoulder and just he was really touched by what I was saying. And so I think it wasn't until I went off to school in a different city that people, when they would hear some of these stories, they'd go, wow, that's incredible. And I never really thought it was that different.
yeah, yeah, I can imagine. What kind of time period are we talking here?
Well, this was 76 is when I went off to college. So I was in high school, 73 to 76. So, it's late 70s.
Right.
It's the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there on the night that Carole won all of her Grammys for Tapestry. I mean, I was babysitting that night, and we're just all the kids were all in bed, watching the TV, and it's like, oh, mommy won another award. Isn't that fun?
Oh man. Yeah, that must be pretty amazing. And it must have been a bit of a realization for you, I guess, when you went off to college that must have been a point where you realized that that wasn't what most people's upbringings was like.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't really speak of it that much. So actually telling you these stories, it's bringing it all back to me because I don't, it's so far in the past I don't really talk about this anymore, but Yeah, I would say now it has hugely impacted who I am.
I bet,
Who I
yeah.
am now and who I have been, going into this profession in my 20s and and being able to make a living.
On the subject of that, you say your parents are entrepreneurs. Did they how did they feel about your idea to become a musician?
Oh God, not at all. No. This was not in the plan. No, I was supposed to go to college and get a degree and have a normal life. I mean, my sister, became a teacher and then a school administrator and owned her own school, for many many years. But no, I think my mom always encouraged my creativity. I mean, she just thought this was great. She would make my costumes and help me with my little flyers for shows, and I mean, she was way into it. But my dad never. I mean, my father was in show business originally. He was a writer, a comedy writer, and he just he knew what the business was, so he's protective of his daughter and not wanting me to do it and not encouraging me at all, and always kept encouraging me to be behind the scenes. I will declare for myself I'm a really good producer and organizer, and I know how to put things together and put shows together and make it all work. And I think he always saw me behind the scenes, being that kind of a person. But that also meant that you're getting a regular paycheck from a studio or a organization. So I think that he didn't. I don't know. I mean, I think he'd be pretty blown away. I think he was. I think both parents are gone now, but I think he was proud of me with what I was doing, but I think always thinking I was going to be starving. And there were times I was, but then he also, I have to say, he also really encouraged me um, to do what it is that I wanted to do. So as much as I think one part of him was protective, another part was seeing that I was doing it, seeing that I was creating my way and encouraging me along the way.
So what um what happened next basically? You've decided to be a musician, you've given up on the swimming, or at least the ambition of the
No,
swimming.
never. No, I'll tell you, my swimming, I would have to say my swimming is the heart of everything I do. It
Okay.
still is. I'm still swimming. I swim 4 days a week, and actually, because you're in England, the biggest thrill of my life, the biggest adventure I ever did was I was part of the very first American women's relay team to swim the English Channel. So when you said you were in Brighton, I mean, I'm an England fanatic. I love England as much as I can come to England. I do,
Yeah.
and we went to Folkestone and hung out in Folkestone until we got the call that's time to go, and we did this. And this was quite a few years ago. I was in my 30s, I think, when I did that. But we swam from Dover to Calais, France, and that was one of my big thrills. But yeah, I do long distance relay team swimming. So I've done in Hawaii, Maui to Lanai, and then in San Francisco we have the Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz and all these different swims like that. But swimming the English Channel was pretty fun.
Oh well. Yeah, I bet you found the temperature a bit different to the Pacific.
No, it's the same as it's the same as San Francisco. So a
Is it
lot of
really?
people who are
Wow.
training for the channel will come to San Francisco to train, in the Bay because it's the same. So, yeah, it was pretty fun. But yeah, I would say that swimming still is the discipline that allows me to do what it is that I do because I think that when you're an entrepreneur, um, you have to, it's all self created. And that's what swimming is. It's not I mean, although I'm on a team, swimming is not always, I mean, I've been on relay teams, but swimming is a very individual sport. You have to, it's all self motivated. And I truly believe that the music I've done through the years, everything that I've done has been from that place of realizing, the phone's not going to ring with jobs. I have to go out and create it, and if I want to make albums, those songs aren't just going to appear. I have to write them, I have to raise the money to make the CD, and I have to go out in the world and promote it, and it's all very self um, motivated. And there are definitely times that it's really hard to do all that and to motivate. But the idea of eating and paying your rent is a big motivator.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. So tell us about when you started off as a musician. Then you mentioned you'd go to places and just ask anybody when you could play and so on. Were you after a record contract and that kind of thing, or were you always looking to do it on your own?
Yeah, I was when I was in Hollywood, when I was still living at home. Yeah, I was doing the whole Carole King singer-songwriter route. I was going around to publishers with my little songs and saying, I was trying to do that whole route. And uh, but I think there was another part of me that still felt like I needed to go to college and figure that out. So I wound up moving from Los Angeles up to San Francisco. There was a very cool, creative liberal arts college that, if you can believe this, it closed the day that I enrolled. So I move up to San Francisco. I'm ready to go to college. And they go, "Oh, we lost all our funding and the school is going to close at the end of the year. So you could stay here if you want." And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I wound up living in the dorm of this college and then commuting to another school. And by the end of the year, it was like, well, I found out about this other little independent music school that was up in my area and started taking classes there and just said, this is the life I want. I'm 20 years old. I don't know what I'm doing. My dad wants me to finish college, but I've just had this burning desire. And I didn't want to move back to Los Angeles. I just had this intuitive sense that San Francisco was a place that I could find myself. And and I was just different. I just didn't fit in Los Angeles. I didn't have long blonde straight hair and look like all the beach babes that were there. And I just felt like when I moved to San Francisco, it was like I just felt like I was home. But I just started to write my songs and just have different day jobs that I would do. I did all these little different jobs to be able to support myself, to just go and play in clubs at night for $50, playing solo piano in some hotel or whatever. And again, coming back to that place of like, and I think this is what life does to all of us, is the concept of like people saying, okay, you have to have a name. Well, how do I get a name? And it's like that circle. And so one of the things that happened during this time is I found out about this little television, a cable station here, and I wound up pitching to them the idea of, what about if you had a music showcase once a week that I would host, and I'd have all my friends on. I would perform every week, but I'd have all my friends on that also are looking to have a place to play. And they were like, you're not going to get paid for it, but sure, do it. And so I wound up doing this show. But what was the entrepreneur part of me was kind of smart in this department. Was after I went through all of my friends being on my show, because it was a weekly show, I would tape four shows in a day, but it would be on, for a month. I started to look at, well, okay, who are some of the acts that I admire that I could call up and say, "Do you want to be on my show?" And you get a video out of it and whatever. And so that's how I started to hook up with these people who could then bring me in as their opening act, or they would introduce me to a club owner and say, "Oh, try her out," or so I just think that there's something, and I have to give my parents credit for this, and I have to give swimming credit for this, that I think life always presents us with those challenges of like, well, I want to do this, but you have to do that. And, just like, how do I get through this like maze of all the different obstacles?
Yeah.
But I really think if we're open to saying, okay, I'm willing to receive, guidance, or show me the right people or whatever, that I think things come into your life to guide you in that way. And I just, you have to be open to work hard for. I mean, not to work hard. I don't mean to say that, but you have to be. The things could come to you, but you have to say yes to it, and you have to
Yeah.
do what it is you need to do. But I just look at, creating that television show really was a springboard for me to meet all these different people, start to play clubs, and and it's interesting because I say this a lot in the women's retreats that I lead and the talks that I do, that like the English Channel was a great example of this zigzag path that life does. Because if you stand on the shore of Dover and you look out to where you're going to go to Calais, France, it's like, you think you're going to just go in this straight line, straight across, like it's 22 miles, and I'm just going to do 22 miles straight across. But the way that the currents work is that the only way you can make it is you have to go catching the currents.
Mm.
And, if you go, no, 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 I just know it's this way and I'm going to go that way, you're just going to get swept off to New York. But if you trust the boat, you trust the captain who's looking at the maps and looking at the tides. And you do, in this case, since it's a relay, I swam an hour, the next girl goes in, she swims an hour, and we do this, you eventually get there. And, that's what I think is so interesting about, when I look at my path. It's like if I would have just said, oh, I want to be a singer songwriter and do this, I would have never gotten there. But to be open to the way life was leading me here and then going over here and over here, so I have to look at meeting Carole King was maybe one of the first steps that just went, there, and then moving to San Francisco, and then, in the path that I'm on now of doing, spiritual music and positive message music, I would have never, I wouldn't have guessed that. And being a speaker, being a workshop facilitator, had no idea.
I'm glad you called it spiritual music because I wasn't sure how to describe it in that respect because it's not as an obvious type of music to describe as, I don't know, reggae or punk rock or something.
Right.
Really, I suppose. You touched on you went to San Francisco and you really found yourself. And I'm probably going to dart about a little bit here, I suppose, with
Do.
the timeline and so on. But this whole spiritual aspect of your music obviously comes from your life. So how does that feed into the story? When and how did that kind of make itself present?
Well, again, the zigzag, I mean, here I am, in my 20s going, do I move back to Los Angeles? Do I stay in college? What do I do? And this music school that I mentioned, I started meeting people there and wound up getting a little apartment and started to teach music lessons and just do whatever I could to make a living. But, through the years, what eventually happened was, playing with bands, playing little blues bars in San Francisco. Eventually, getting jobs. The only paychecks I've ever had was when I would get a steady at a hotel. So you're playing 5 nights a week with a band or something in the lobby. But then I did start doing private parties, and that's what would make you'd make more money doing that. But at some point, probably about 20 years ago, and I've always been a person who is a seeker, I would call myself, always reading self help books and positive message, Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson and Deepak Chopra and, any of those kind of people. I'm following them, I'm studying them, I'm going to workshops. I did the S training. I mean, all these different things. And, and I'm still writing, like songs about my man done left me and life sucks and, those kinds of songs.
Yeah.
And, but I'm loving singing the blues. That was one of the main things I did. So, but one day I get a call from a friend of mine who also was doing this, playing clubs and things like that. But she had become a music director of what is called a New Thought Church. And even more specifically, it was Church of Religious Science, which is now called Centers for Spiritual Living. But it's it's basically, for your listeners, it's a positive message church, and it's not even really a church. It's science of mind or religious science is like it's a philosophy that turned into people gathering and making it like a church service. But anyway, so she's the music director of this little church, about an hour away from me here. And she goes, I have to leave on this one day. Can you come up and, be a substitute for me on this day? And I'm like, well, I don't do churches. I'm singing rock and roll and blues every night. What is a church? I don't do God songs. And she goes, "Oh no, no, it's just if you could sing a few happy songs, things that just have a happy message, that'll be fine. I'll pay you $100." And I'm like, "Okay, got me.
I could be happy. Yeah.
That'll make me happy on a Sunday morning." I mean, she basically just said, "What else are you doing at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning? Just come and just sing. It's nice people. Just come." And I was like, "Fine, okay." So I show up at this church, don't have any, because I wasn't raised religiously in any spiritual. I mean, my dad was Jewish, my mom was Christian. They just didn't even do any kind of religion with my sister and I. And so I go to this church, and they're just, the minister's doing this message about, how whatever you think is how your life is going to be. And if you think positive thoughts, your life is going to be happy. And everybody's just really nice. And, I'm playing blues bars at night where they're practically throwing things at you if you don't do the right song that they want. And, they're all drunk. And I mean, I remember one time in the middle of a ballad, and these guys broke into this fight and everyone's throwing things. I mean, so now I'm at a church where they're all smiling at me and they're listening. And I'm going, this is kind of nice. And it just was really, again, the zigzag path where she just kept getting other jobs and kept calling me saying, they really like you here. Could you come back? And so after a while, I ran out of, happy songs. And I'm thinking, that I could just find as pop songs or whatever. And I started to ask the minister, well, what are you speaking about this week? And I started writing songs to match what the message was going to be. And eventually, this friend of mine, Melissa, moved on to be a music director of another church, and I became the music director of this church. And so that meant every Sunday, I mean, I'm still playing rock and roll weddings or blues bars at night, but Sunday morning, I'm showing up at this church and writing songs to match the message and feeling like, wow, this is really fun. And this is really like these songs just flowed out of me so easily, so fast. And especially the chants. And for your listeners, the difference of a song and a chant. A song is like like a whole verse and chorus, and it's like a whole story. A chant is just taking a few lines and just repeating them over and over so that your mind kind of gets what it is and it goes into your heart, and you could just sing it over and over and feel good. And so from that place, I started writing all these songs, and someone came up and said, well, do you have these have you made these into a CD? Because I'd really like to listen during the week. And in 1999, that started my very first album, Songs of the Spirit 1. I just took all the little songs I'd been singing at these women's retreats that they would hire me for or at church, made it into an album. And I literally remember saying to someone, who else except my little church of 30 people is going to listen to this? I just thought it's just going to be a little gift to them. And, that was it. That's all I could see. And then pretty soon after that, within the next few years, came 9/11. And all the shows that I was doing, the corporate shows, and I was doing a lot of comedy. It's one of the elements I didn't remember to say in this is that I was also, I'm a musical comedienne. So I was playing a lot of comedy clubs, and I was doing a lot of corporate comedy, and everything just stopped. It's like everyone just said, we can't laugh after 9/11. We just can't have these things. And so I lost all my work. But all of a sudden, that one little album started to sell. And I started to write more songs of comfort and recorded Songs of the Spirit too. And all of a sudden now, I'm starting to see that this album is selling to all these different bookstores around the country, and different authors are using maybe one of the songs in their workshops, and all of a sudden I'm getting, orders from Michigan or Ohio and places I've never been. And that's what really started me on this path. And it was really, when you know you're on the right path, it's like if you've been swimming upstream and working hard, I think when you're on the right path, all of a sudden you feel like the water just starts taking you and you just kind of float back and go, ah,
Yeah.
still working hard, you're still doing stuff, but you just feel like the universe is working in your direction. And from that, any idea I had of being some kind of a rock star, living in Los Angeles, doing that was like, this is my path, however it's supposed to look, wherever I'm supposed to go, this is what I do. So the fact that you even say that you know me in England, that someone played one of my songs, is just the greatest gift, that
Yeah. It's
that
particularly, I
my
suppose,
music has gotten out there to different people like that.
yeah. And of course, in the internet age, things do
Yeah.
travel, don't they? I with a different hat on, I make music as well, and people in California that I know like my music. It's exactly the same thing. It's just, it blows my mind because I didn't think anyone. Well, it just doesn't occur to you till the internet comes along that that kind of thing can happen, unless you're John Denver
Right.
or Carole King or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
It strikes me this would might be a nice little point for you to do a song. Would that be
Sure.
agreeable?
Well, you mentioned this one, so let's see. I'm gonna do. Oh, where are you? I'll do this. Can you hear the track? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Gratitude before me, and gratitude behind me. Gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. And I'm so grateful, yeah. And I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful. Every day I'm grateful, yeah. I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful. Now for all your listeners, gratitude, but you do the movements. Gratitude behind. Is this just a podcast? Are they able to see me?
That's just podcast.
Gratitude to the right of me. And you say gratitude above me, below me. Gratitude below me, within me. Gratitude within. And then you go all around me. Gratitude all around. And you open up your arms and you say, I'm so grateful. Then you give that gratitude to yourself. So grateful. Then you give it out to people you love. Arms in front, then you release, let it go. I'm so grateful. 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 So like that. So there's a song. I'll give you a bunch of I'll just give you little snippets of things today. But yeah, that's one of my favorite ones to do because I get everyone up doing, all the movements and, makes it really fun.
Well, I'm so grateful that you did that. I sing that song to myself walking down the street as, and this is kind of getting to the crux of the matter in some respects. I sing that walking down the street, but not in the same way I'd sing a pop song. But I sing it with intent,
Yeah, that's what it's all
as a
about.
meditation, essentially, as a prayer, perhaps even actually that might be not a word I'm massively comfortable with, I suppose, but I think that's probably what it is. Um, and this is quite, and also the way you sang that then as well. There was an invitation to,
Mm. Participate.
yeah, to participate emotionally as well as
Yes.
the hand movements or whatever. I think, well, obviously
Right.
the one feeds to the other, doesn't it? So this is really kind of, this is what I'm quite curious about. This is probably really why I wanted to talk to you actually. Much as I could talk to you for hours about the Laurel Canyon stuff, in all honesty, but um, music, as I was growing up, I only knew pop music or whatever. Only classical music existed and opera and all that jazz. But really, rock and roll music, all its kind of forms and mutations was what kind of mattered to me and what informed my life. I was a punk rocker. That was my era, if you like. And so I knew all that. And then getting into sort of meditation and stuff like that and mindfulness and what you might call more spiritual matters, or you might not.
Yeah, that's it.
I became aware of sound and the way sound can work on a sort of vibrational level with various things, really, sort of Tibetan singing bowls, for instance, or just more scientific stuff like binaural beats and alpha waves and all that kind of jazz. So your music seems to marry these two things to some extent, and this is what really kind of fascinates me, is that the path you have gone down is really, really different to uh, pop music, but it's also kind of more poppy than people who
Oh
just do
yeah, well, I mean,
meditation music.
I'm still doing pop and blues and jazz. I mean,
Mm,
I mean, the players that play on my albums. I mean, my husband does all of my producing, and he's a great, you know, jazz guitar player and bass player. So it's like that influence. I mean, you hear Steely Dan in my. I mean, he's a big Steely Dan fan. You can hear some Steely Dan in me. You can hear Carole King in me. You can hear James Taylor. So I mean, the music is still, um, you know, really good. I mean, sometimes people think it's going to be woo woo music. It's not. I mean, I'm all these are really like pop songs or jazz songs or they're regular music, but the difference is, I think, it's the lyrics. It's the lyrics and what you're saying, the intention.
mm,
So to me, when you hear a pop song, it's going to make you feel something. But what I'm specifically trying to do, especially with my chants, especially with saying I'm so grateful, or I'll play you in a second if you want. Well, I'll just even sing it. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. And that little chant, if on the recording of it, we're singing that little part 7 times, with harmonies coming in and the music changes a little bit with different instruments. But to me, the idea that you can close your eyes and just keep saying, I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I'm so grateful. I'm just grateful for everything in my life. And you say that over and over. And when it's a chant, if you can pick it up easily, which is what my job is to make the lyrics so easy and the melody so easy that you don't have to keep going, what does it do now, that you can hear it and you can just immediately drop into your heart. But you're saying, I am blessed, I am grateful. That's what makes the change cellularly to me. So what you're talking about is just, it's the music, it's the lyrics, it's basically, it's what I call that I do is I'm putting affirmations to music.
mm,
So when you think about
mm.
an affirmation, I am healthy, I am strong, I am whatever you say after I am is what you're declaring. So I always say to people, be careful, watch your words, because that's what gets in your head. If you keep going, oh, I'm not good at this. Oh, I can't sing, or I can't. Your brain hears that and goes, yes, master, I'll make it so. And it's like, but if you're just
Yeah,
saying something positive,
yeah. There's a famous quote, isn't there, along the lines of whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. But yeah.
that's it. That's essentially it. So that's why it's very rare. In all of my, I mean, I have 22 albums out at this point, and I it's very rare that I ever say you. You. I always say I in my lyrics. And if I do say you, I have a song, you are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth. And who you are and all you do is a blessing to the world. But then at the end, I make it be, I am the heart, I am the hands. So whenever you're saying I, you're declaring it to yourself, and it becomes this affirmation that your brain starts to do a different pathway in your brain saying, "Oh, I'm capable of doing this."
So do you write your songs with an invitation for people to sing along then and to
Always.
personify them? Yeah.
Always. I everything I do is about sing along with me. So, when I do a concert, it's not like I want you to come watch me. I look at everything I do, whether it's a concert or a retreat I'm leading or an album that I'm listening to. Everything is about that I'm creating this sandbox, and I want you to come in and play with me in my sandbox. So because of that, it's all, this is all worked out beforehand. Because of that, I will never be doing Aretha Franklin licks, like going, ah, doing like what Mariah Carey does on every song. Because as soon as I do that, you're going to listen, you're going to be singing along with me and go, oh, I can't do that. And you'll just not even be aware of it, but you'll stop singing. So if the words are too complicated, if the melody, if it, if I do, like I have a song, God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. Now, I also say, if you don't like the word God, if that doesn't work for you, I have love is my source, love is my power, or joy or peace. But if I was to do love is my source, love is my power, you would be going, what? What was that rhythm? It'd be hard for you to sing. But if I do it, love is my source, love is my power, love gives me everything I need. If I keep it just right on it, you'll be able to, within a few times listening, be able to sing. And one of
That's
my,
conscious when you're
yeah,
writing the songs.
oh, totally. I make it really easy that you can immediately sing it. If I do anything that's complicated, I'm going to lose you.
God would lose some people, as you've just alluded to, I suppose.
It
Um,
does. Yeah,
it
sometimes.
must have been kind of weird for you to be doing kind of a sort of blues brother type bottles flying through the air gig at the evening and then playing a church in the morning. Did you feel like you were living a double life?
At the beginning, yes, I did, until I wrote a song called I Lost the Right to Sing the Blues, which was all about, it was a spiritual song. It's one of my most popular songs. It's just this blues song. Um, Woke up this morning. So, well, I could sing it for you if you want, but
No,
it
go on.
was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right. Let's see here. But, yeah, so in one sense, yeah, I was doing a little bit of a double life because, I'm singing these blues songs. But then when it came together and I realized, oh, wait a minute, I can take blues that I love singing, and turn it into another song, that's going to work. It just, uh, it wound up to be that I could actually start to meld it together. And eventually it just was like, this isn't my life anymore. And I think that's the other thing that we have to do sometimes in life is realize when something's done. I wasn't being fulfilled by, singing and singing weddings and singing evergreen and feelings and New York and whatever the pop song of the day was. It's like this is really what I wanted to do. And eventually I was able to you know carve out my income and be able to make my living doing this. But yeah, so I do, I kind of do a real variety. One of the things I do is I always do a chant album. So what you're going to get is all these repeating these chants. There's some of them are real meditation songs. I'll send you some of that stuff. I don't know if you know about some of that, but I have like these 5 minute long meditations that are
Right.
just saying, I allow, I surrender over and over with all these harmonies happening. And, musically, it's really like one of my favorite ones is the Ohoponopono chant, which is it's a Hawaiian mantra that says, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. It's a forgiveness chant. But I mean, I did that for 5 minutes just over and over. And people just say that they just go away. They just start to feel all this, this deeper stuff by just chanting. But what I have done through the years is I'll do a chant album, then I'll do a song album, then I'll do a chant album, then I'll do a song album. So in the song albums, those are just like, well, it's like this. I don't know if I'll play you the whole song, but Let me give you a little bit of it.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. I woke up this morning, something was not right. My poor head was a throbbing, cause I tossed and turned all night. Well, this unfamiliar feeling kinda shook me up inside, cause the truth it was revealing that a part of me had died. So I called my higher self, and she gave me the bad news. She said, your life is just so good, you lost the right to sing the blues. That broken down old Chevy that was eating me alive. Well, honey, I visualized me a Lexus, and now it is sitting in my drive. And that man of mine, that scoundrel, that rotten low-down bum, I transformed him into a love god with a sizable trust fund. And everywhere I looked, I was confronted with the clues that my life was just so good, I lost the right to sing the blues. Now, you can sing the blues if you can't pay your rents, and you can sing the blues if your money has all been spent. But how can I sing the blues? I ain't got no excuse when I'm driving in my Porsche on the way to my masseuse. So you won't find me wailing late at night in some smoky bar, and you won't see me crying tears into my old guitar. I am too busy cleaning my chakras and chasing bad karma away and fluffing up my aura. Well, it takes me all day. Now that I am enlightened, I've got to spread the news. When life gets this darn good, you lost the right to sing the blues. And then I do a kazoo solo.
You got a kazoo, brilliant.
Oh, it's my thing. But anyway, it goes on from there. But that's an example of a song.
That's a lovely song. But you've completely thrown me with the kazoo because I love kazoos. But, yeah.
I have 100 of these kazoos. This is my main instrument.
Brilliant, brilliant. When I was a punk rocker, the idea was, you didn't have to go out to play or anything. The first thing I did was went out and bought a kazoo because I thought, well, that looks easy enough. So yeah.
Well, I love it that I'm gonna go.
Blimey, I could never do it that good. Yeah, that's fantastic. I lost the right to sing the blues. I'm enlightened. That's really quite fascinating, and I think this kind of leads us nicely onto that area, doesn't it? Really. I heard your interview with Solara Star recently on her podcast,
Yeah.
and you sort of seem to be kind of in tune with her quite a lot about things like law of attraction, manifestation, all that kind of stuff. Um, which is all about vibration ultimately, I suppose. Well, not all about
Yes.
vibration, but that would be a part of it. And that's where, to me, on a scientific level, music meets the manifestation, sorry, the vibration of
Yes.
musical notes, for instance, and so on and so forth. Did you ever take an interest in that kind of scientific aspect of it?
Um, I'm much more. I mean, I certainly have worked with and listened to many of the people that have books out about all this kind of stuff. I've worked with Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza, and all these different kinds of folks that did that. But I think I resonate more just on an emotional level. I don't the scientific part of it all doesn't really float my boat all that much, but I get it, I get it, and I think I get it more from the standpoint of um, I just think it's that is it oxytocin that gets released, when you're breathing, and that hormone that gets released when you're breathing and you're singing, and it just feels good. And that's what every time I start a retreat or a workshop, I don't even introduce myself. I just sing for half an hour. I have everybody just walk in the room, and we just immediately are singing. And as soon as I stop after about 30 minutes, you just see everyone's kind of going, they're like blitzed out. And then their hearts are opened.
Yeah.
And then I can go in, and if I'm going to, be talking or lecturing about anything, it's from that place. But I believe that opening your heart with comedy and with dropping down into some of these songs that just bring you into your heart. That's what it's all about.
I
So,
have
what it does
experience.
scientifically, I'm sure there's all these studies and everything like that.
I get you. I get you. I do have experience of that kind of that experience, but many people might not. So, what does opening your heart mean?
Oh, okay. Good point. Well, I
It
think
sounds good, but
it does sound good. That's a great question because it's something I talk about a lot, and it's like, really, well, what does that mean? I would say that I think we all live in our heads a lot with our little inner critic constantly giving little comments about, how we're doing and judging and all this kind of stuff. But like I wrote a song with my friend Gary Lynn Floyd that says, I am dropping down to the truth of who I am. I am dropping down, surrendering in love. And I think what that song is, it's like I believe that when we're in our heads, we have to literally consciously just kind of slow ourselves down and drop. It's almost like I almost get this picture of like an elevator, like you're dropping from your chattering brain. And with each breath, you're dropping down into this place that we could call your heart, you could call your soul, you could call your consciousness, that you drop down into this place that just is where silence is, where there's a little bit more quiet. And I call that your inner knowing. That's where some people could call it God, or universe, or presence. But I think opening your heart to me means that you just open to that place that is not of your mind, that is chattering on, telling you, like, this is what you should do. That when I open my heart, I feel like I am connecting to a deeper part of me that knows the truth, that is not all about the shoulds and coulds and inner critic stuff, that is a deeper knowing. I remember when my dad was dying, that I remember every time I would open up the door to the room that he was in, I'd been reading Stephen Levine, Meetings at the Edge at the time. And he was, and maybe this is where I got the real physical experience of this, where he talked about when you're meeting someone at the edge, when they're, in that place of dying, your first thing is like, you want to just clench. It's like, this is hard. I don't want to go here. But he would say, soften your heart. So you would say to me, well, what does soften your heart mean? But to me, it's like I could literally feel myself clenching and then just breathing into this, just this softening. I don't even know. Maybe it's a visual. I would just soften myself. I would just take that deep breath, relax my shoulders, relax, and just feel like I was dropping down into this other place so that when I opened the door, I could be greeting that experience with a broader consciousness than what was on the other side of that door going, I don't want to be here. I don't want to go through this. And actually, this is a full circle moment of talking about swimming in the bay. It's like when you first get when you're standing on the shore and you know that water is going to be cold, it's the same thing. You're going, I don't want to do this. It's going to be cold. But the learning and the growth in all of this and why people are addicted to swimming in cold water is that when you allow yourself to just be in it, I mean, this sounds kind of woo woo, but be one with that water. There's that expression, whatever you resist persists. If I keep resisting and going, I'm so cold, I'm so cold, I'm so cold, it's going to be, hello, guess what? Really cold. But when I allow myself to say, okay, you breathe and you feel the cold, but you breathe into it. You lean into it. I have another song called Lean Into It. You lean into it as opposed to doing this. You accept it. You don't fight it. Within, in my experience of swimming in the bay, within 30 seconds, all of a sudden you've gone through this portal that you're in nirvana land because your body adapts, and all of a sudden you're out there and the endorphins kick in, you're looking out, you're seeing the Golden Gate Bridge, it's beautiful, and you relax into it, and it's like you've gone through a portal. So I would have to say that opening your heart is the same portal. It's the same thing of saying, oh, I don't know how to open, I don't know, what does this mean? But the more you can just get visuals of relaxing your being, taking a breath, just saying, I'm open to this experience. Sometimes it's even opening up your heart chakra like this, that you open wide and just allow your heart to just, okay, I'm going to open to this experience, whatever this is. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. It makes a lot of sense. You've mentioned the phrase woo woo a couple of times.
Do you know it? Do you do you use that expression in England?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You hear it all the time. Well,
Okay.
not at the bus stop or something, but you hear
No.
it in this kind of context, you know. What I've been thinking about this quite a lot, really. I mean, often you hear it in the sense of, I don't want to get too woo woo, or even I'm a bit woo woo, or whatever, you know. What's woo woo, and what isn't? You know, where's the border?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think I use that expression sometimes to just maybe buffer anything that's going to be deep for someone that they might not understand, or that it might
Mm,
be kind of out there. It's not like everyday language, like at the bus stop, like you're saying,
yeah.
that it's
There's
going
a
to be
certain
something different.
defensiveness about the
I
phrase, I
guess it
suppose,
is.
isn't there?
That's a really good point. Maybe it
Yeah.
is. Oh, this might be woo woo. I don't want you to think I'm a crazy person. But, I mean, I live in this place. I love talking woo woo. I love, I'm there. This is my favorite. I mean, that's why I said yes to talking with you. It's like, I love speaking about this stuff, and looking at seeking a deeper connection to myself, seeking a deeper connection to the world and to humanity. And so yeah, that's a really good point. I think that when I use that term, I'm probably trying to buffer what I'm going to say to someone so that they don't get offended or think it's just too out there. So if I go, oh, this might be a little woo woo for you, but woo woo really means spirituality, and connectedness to all things. And, that's why, like, I will tell you, we were talking about the word God.
Mm,
I've dropped using the word God in my albums probably maybe like 5 years ago, because I realized that everyone has a different interpretation of that word. And for some people, it triggers, being in Catholic school and having the nuns, yell at you because you're not doing God right, or I don't know what, but it triggers people. So in all of my songwriting, it's spirit. I just say spirit.
mm, mm.
I even have a new song on. I'll play you this real fast. I've got
Yeah, go on.
brand new album out, and so I'll just sing you the chorus of this. But the original word was God, and I changed it to, oh, this. I'm never alone. We are never alone. You are never, ever alone. So that is referring to, there's a presence, there's a power around us at all times. So once again, talking about the style of music, I mean, this is funky. So here's the chorus. I don't walk alone. Spirit is with me always. Grace fills me now. I don't walk alone. I don't walk alone. Spirit is with me always. Grace fills me now. I don't, and this is where I always ask everyone to join me. I don't walk alone. Spirit is with me always. Grace fills me now. I don't walk alone. I don't walk alone. Spirit is with me always. Grace fills me now. I don't walk alone. So that song originally, that was written with a friend of mine, Sue Faria. That was originally God walks with me. God is walking with me. And I just said to her, I just feel like we're going to lose people if we say that. But the second verse says, no matter what I call it, no matter what I believe, I know that when I'm hurting, if I ask, I will receive. The love that I'm needing, the peace within my soul, I can surrender and let go. Where I said, there's another line that says, it's a presence, it's a power that cannot be denied, that I don't walk alone because Spirit is with me always.
This is really interesting. I mean, I could probably talk about this for an awful long time with you. The whole God word concept, etc., etc., particularly within a context of contemporary America, contemporary United States, of course, where you have the kind of rabid Christian right
Right.
uh,
Well,
on the march and so on and so forth. If I were you, well, no, I was gonna say if I were you, I'd probably be worried about using the word for that reason alone. But um, I'm curious as to kind of watching. I saw a video of you playing "I'm So Grateful" in a church, and my reaction, having a been brought up a Catholic and b seeing the news footage we get of the whole kind of Trump era in the United States and so on and so forth. Yeah, quite. Yeah. Um, it must be a sort of strange place to be, really, sort of in a world where people are using God and Jesus Christ and all this kind of thing as excuses for sort of bad behavior and thoughts and so on.
oh yeah, it's just our country right now. We can't even go there with me because I'm gonna get. Been having a lovely time so far with you. No,
Yeah,
it's a mess. It's really a mess here, and I just truly believe that my job is to keep focusing in on the positive, keep focusing in on the positive, keep bringing light to all these situations, and where I mean, I have my own relationship with that word of what God is, but God is to me what I said in that song. It's a presence, it's a power. I just feel this power of love. So I look at God, as love to me.
yeah,
If I see, I have a song, my most popular song is, "You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God." I mean, I see everyone from that place of love and God. And so,
yeah,
I don't really go there in my songs that much. If anything, my songwriting is really about just positive. I have a song, "My Religion is Kindness." Um,
yeah,
I just,
yeah,
that's really where I'm just
yeah.
coming
Sorry,
for
I don't
positive
mean
love
to.
and light.
I don't mean to kind of try and put a spanner in the works or anything like that. My more what I was thinking was, I suppose that we live in very confused times in terms of spirituality.
Yes.
I think I mean, up till possibly up till the '60s, I suppose, actually, uh, when you and I probably came on the scene as human beings, there was a very sort of rigid and you know narrow view of spirituality within organized religion, I guess. And did the sort of when the hippies came out, it always struck me, in hindsight, I mean, I was a child at that point, but listening to songs like Scott McKenzie, San Francisco, Simon and Garfunkel, the Seekers singing "There's a New World Out There they call the Promised Land" and this kind of stuff. It seemed to me that the kind of hippie stroke '60s generation were Seekers, yeah, like the band was called, I suppose. Um, did and you grew up in the kind of what from over here at least looked like the geographical epicenter of the hippie revolution, so on and so forth. Did you have a an affinity with that when you were growing up?
Um, well, that's a good question. No, I mean, I think I've always been attracted to freedom, and that represented people just being who they are and expressing who they are. And I think that that's another part of what my message is and what my songs are about, which is be all of who you are. Don't let anyone rain on your parade. I mean, I have a lot of songs about light and shining your light. So I would think, in reference to your question, that's probably what I got from that time period, was just seeing people just being free. And I think that's what I try to do in everything I do, is encourage myself and encourage others to live their best life, um, shine your light, because I believe that in these trying times, especially going through COVID and everything, we just need as many people to be shining their lights and being positive and uh, helping each other through. I mean, we're here for each other. I mean, Brene Brown, the author says, we are wired for connection. And I think that's part of what my mission statement is in my music is, there's nothing that makes me happier than even on Zoom calls, when I see all the little boxes of people and they're all just singing along with me. They're all muted. But, I do a monthly sing along thing, and this is all on my YouTube site. People can see the past shows I've done. Once a month, all through COVID, I would do this, free sing along. Like just come and just sing, be with each other, be in community. And so I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and I do it every month. So, I think it's just about these times we need to be there for each other and keep shining our lights. So
And you do
that's kind of my
retreats on
story.
that level as well, don't you?
What is that?
You do retreats as
I
well.
do. I do retreats. And actually, that was one of my main disappointments in COVID. I was supposed to come over and do a retreat
Oh,
with,
really?
yeah, it
Oh,
was, how do you pronounce her name now? Shalara? How do you say her
that's
name?
well, I say Solara. Yeah.
Talara, yeah.
Whether I'm
Well,
getting it
she
right
had
or not.
another name a couple of years ago.
Yes, I
But yeah,
know.
we were
Yeah.
supposed to do a women's retreat and it got canceled. So maybe
Right.
hopefully we'll come back and do it again. But it's the same thing you're doing, by doing your podcast. You're shining your light and, letting people have some wonderful conversations. And, I certainly enjoy speaking with you today. It's just really great. So
I've really enjoyed it as well. Yeah. So thank you so much. Basically, I really do appreciate you giving your time. It's very generous of you.
yeah, well, thank you. It's
Thank
really
you.
lovely. And the way that if anyone's interested, I send out a monthly newsletter. I write a little essay, but then I always talk about, if I have new music coming out, which now I'm doing singles, which is a whole other topic we could get into about how CDs don't really sell anymore. It's all about
Yeah.
singles and live streaming and all that kind of stuff. So if you go to my website and just sign up on my email list, I have people from all over the world on it, and I just send out a monthly newsletter. But yeah, I do in-person retreats that people can come to, and I do online retreats and workshops. So I encourage anyone to just go to my website and see what's there.
That would be fantastic. Do you want to tell people what your website is and any other ways
Oh,
they
just
can?
KarenDrucker.com, just my name, Karen Drucker, Drucker.com. And you can buy singles there and buy my music and see my videos, and also to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I've got a bunch of, some of my songs actually. I have another grateful song you might like. It's called I Am Grateful, and there's a great video of the two gals that I wrote this song with. They're on there with me, and it's just, yeah. So my YouTube channel, if you subscribe to the Karen Drucker on YouTube, there's just a ton of videos and live things there.
No, I've been watching them and really
Yeah,
enjoying it actually. Yeah, and you've got a lot of views on some of them, haven't you? That's for sure.
yeah.
So that's really
Yeah,
cool.
that's one of the things when I've gotten depressed and thought, oh, people aren't buying CDs anymore, and how is anyone going to know about me? It's like again, the fact that you're in England and someone played one of my songs at a retreat for you. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with my music, is get it out to more people who are along the same lines as me,
Yeah,
that will play my music and turn other people. It's not so much turn them onto my music so I can get more people following me. It's like I want to take this positive message and plant seeds all around the world, so that people are playing my music and singing these positive songs and they're feeling better.
yeah,
So that's my mission. That's what I want to do. And a lot of my music goes with people going through cancer treatments. I mean, that's a real focus for me, is writing songs for people going through, healing things and cancer treatments and stuff. They use my music in the hospital while they're in surgery. They're on some level they're hearing the message, I'm healed, whole, and healthy. I've got 2 albums, The Heart of Healing 1 and 2, that are all just healing songs. So it's there's a real method to my music. I
not madness.
was about to
Yeah.
say madness, but it's
In that respect, you must think of yourself very differently to how Jimmy Page thinks of himself or somebody in terms of, I mean, you are obviously a musician, but how, is that how you think of yourself? Just a musician that does this, or
No,
what's your identity in that respect?
I'm a minister. I'm a minister of music.
What
I
is
mean, yeah, I mean, I see myself as a minister. So my ministry is part of it is music, part of it is teaching, part of it is facilitating retreats, part of it is, where, however I can minister. And I believe that we all are ministers, but my ministry is this is doing positive message songs and in any of my talks or workshops it's all about positivity and shining our light. So
wow?
no, I don't see myself just as a musician. I started off that way, but I would say the zigzag path led me to all these other hats that I wear, that it's all part of my ministry.
Well, I think you've shone your light fantastically in this last hour and a quarter we've been talking. Yeah, I'm quite blown
Nice to
away by
talk
that
to you.
idea, actually.
I hope I can come to England and see you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do let me know if you're going to come along and we can meet up, and that'd be really good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
come swim near it, swim in Brighton.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got a
All
lovely
right.
sea
Well,
here. I'll just keep chatting after I've stopped recording, but for the sake of the recording, thank you so much for your time, Karen, and your
thank you. Thanks
songs.
for having me.
It's been absolutely wonderful and very inspiring. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.